Why are autistic people so much more likely to experience anxiety? It's a question we hear a lot, right? But the answers, well, they often feel like they're missing something important. Today, we're going to dive into the hard data behind this connection and then explore a really powerful theory that might just change the way you think about both autism and anxiety. Let's start with just one single number: 2.6. A massive population study found that autistic adults are 2.6 times more likely to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder than everybody else. And that's not a small difference. That is a huge deal.
So, to really get a handle on this, our first move is to just establish the facts. We're going to look at some groundbreaking research that gives us the clearest picture we've ever had of this really deep-seated connection. And look, we're not talking about some small sample size here. This data comes from the Stockholm Youth Cohort, which followed over 220,000 people. A scale like that, it gives these findings some serious weight. Now, this is where it gets really mind-blowing. That 2.6 number, turns out that's just the tip of the iceberg. When you start breaking it down into specific disorders, the numbers are just staggering. For obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, the risk for autistic adults is over 8 times higher. 8 times! For social phobia, it's over 5 times higher. This isn't just some subtle trend, folks. It's a massive gap. But just when you think you've got the picture figured out, the data throws us a total curveball, something that really goes against what a lot of people might assume about autism. That's right. The researchers found that the highest risk for anxiety was actually concentrated in autistic people who did not have a co-occurring intellectual disability. So we're talking about those without significant limitations in intellectual functioning. Now that is the kind of finding that makes you stop and ask some much deeper questions. And this is the central mystery, isn't it? Why would this group, who some people might assume faces fewer daily challenges, actually carry the highest burden of anxiety? Well, the answer might not be where we'd expect to find it, in things like social skills or behavior. It might be in something way more fundamental. To solve this puzzle, we need to bring in a whole new idea. It's a theory of attention, and it suggests that the core difference we're seeing isn't about a deficit at all, but about a completely different strategy for processing the world. The theory is called monotropism, and put simply, it's the tendency to have just a few interests that are super highly aroused, pulling your attention in with this incredible force. This is pretty different from a polytropic style, where attention is more spread out across a whole bunch of interests at once. And this illustration is just perfect. Think of monotropic attention, like a powerful flashlight, an intensely bright, focused beam on one single point. Polytropic attention, on the other hand, is more like a lantern, casting a softer, diffuse light over a wider area. And look, neither one is better than the other. They're just fundamentally different ways of spending that very scarce resource we call attention. So what does it actually feel like to experience the world through that intense flashlight beam? Because this isn't just some abstract theory, right? It has profound real-world consequences for how you live your life. Temple Grandin captures this all-consuming focus perfectly. When you're in the tunnel of a monotropic interest, the rest of the world can literally just fade away. It's a state of pure, uninterrupted flow. But what happens when that flow gets shattered?
Well, this is what happens. Autistic advocate Roz Blackburn describes the jolt of being pulled out of that state. For a brain that's so deeply absorbed in one thing, any unexpected input isn't just a minor distraction. It can be a violent sensory shock, a balloon bursting right behind your head. So this creates a really unique perceptual world. You've got this hyper-awareness of everything inside the attention tunnel, and then hypo-awareness, basically a lack of expectation for everything outside of it. This makes shifting your focus, what researchers call shifting cognitive set, incredibly difficult and effortful. You're basically living in a world that feels constantly unpredictable. And now we can finally connect all the pieces. We can see how this fundamental difference in attention provides a powerful, compelling explanation for that anxiety data we started with way back at the beginning. Let's just walk through the logic. First, a monotropic cognitive style creates that attention tunnel. Second, because of that, pretty much anything outside the tunnel comes as a complete surprise. Third, our world, our workplaces, our schools, our social rules, it's largely designed for polytropic minds that can easily multitask. This creates a constant stream of unexpected input for the monotropic person. The result? a life of constant, abrupt sensory and cognitive shocks that build up into a state of chronic anxiety. We're not just talking about feeling startled or a little stressed out here. As the source material puts it, each of these shocks can feel like a complete disconnection from a previous safe state. It's like being plunged into a frightening, meaningless blizzard of sensations over and over again. When that is your daily reality, anxiety isn't just a mood, it's a completely rational response to an environment that feels perpetually unstable and unsafe. And that really leaves us with a final big question to think about. This theory reframes the whole conversation away from deficit and towards difference. It suggests the high rates of anxiety aren't just an inherent part of being autistic, but a consequence of a mismatch between a monotropic mind and a polytropic world. So, what if we changed the world instead of the mind? What might be possible if our society learned to value deep, passionate focus just as much as it values the ability to spread our attention thinly across a dozen different tasks?